Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Quilt-Cam. It's February 24th, 2016, and it has been a rainy, scary, warm day in North Carolina. You know, when the weather is not quite winter, not quite spring, some really weird things happen. And when you get these really warm winds that come through, you can just feel it. In fact, our dog Sadie has been just one big scaredy cat all day long. She jumped onto our bed about 4 o'clock this morning, and when she shakes, her whole body gets into the motion, and if she had a jug of cream attached to her, she could have churned butter. And it's been that way all day long. So if you have any hints or helps what I can do with a very scaredy dog as she gets into her later years, be sure to let me know. Quilt-Cam is something that happens when I'm home. I was gone the past 2 weeks. In fact, most of January and so far most of February have been crazy busy on the road. So we don't always have the chance to do this on a regular basis. So I'm really happy to be here tonight with you. In fact, I've been here all day. After I got some work taken care of this morning, I retired myself down here to my basement studio, and I have been sewing string blocks from all of the wonderful gray scraps that were gifted to me after our Aliatare mystery reveal. These are the scraps that you sent, little leavings and cuttings from your table, maybe some pieces from your stash, when I put out my call for more variety for grays so that I could do a really fun gray string quilt. I'm going to combine these with other units, maybe some other colors. That's yet to be revealed. But right now I'm working on these string blocks. I'm sewing on tonight a 1950s Household. The name brand on this machine is Household, and you can see it's two-tone copper metallic, and this is almost a forest green gray. It's really kind of a very green gray, and it's just a very unique looking machine. It's based on the Singer Class 15, so you'll see the tensioner here off to the side, and the needle uptake lever is here also off to the side. I really like sewing with these Class 15 machines because I don't have anything in front disrupting my field of vision. There's no tension knob here in the front. There's no thing coming at me in the front to whack my forehead if I get too close. It's just a very sweet machine. This one was found in Georgia almost 3 years ago till today. I looked it up. It was February 22nd of 2013 when I found this on a trip back up from Georgia. It had a price tag of something like $35 on it. Not a lot of money in an antique mall. Had to dig for it. It was found underneath a shelf with a bunch of other stuff on it. The interesting thing about this machine is that it came with a sales receipt of one of the times that the previous owner had taken it in to be worked on, to have some maintenance done to it. And one of the comments on that slip was, "Will not pick up bobbin thread." That's usually a sign of something not quite right. Maybe some timing, maybe some lint being where lint isn't. Maybe the feed dogs aren't the right height or the presser foot the right height, whatever it is. She took this machine in to be looked at, and I have that receipt that had her name. It just had the first initial E, and then her last name and the address and everything. And I was able to look her up on Google and find out that her first name was Elise, and she had indeed passed away early 2000s. And this was likely a machine that was picked up at an estate sale or something like that. So I'm really happy to have her in my fleet, as you would say. Something else really interesting. She's got 2 engravings on her machine bed, and I wish that I had a portable camera. Maybe I need a GoPro when I am doing Quilt-Cam so you can see what's going on here. But somebody had taken a Dremel or an engraving tool and put here in front of the needle 2 initials, GA, which I would assume stands for Georgia because that's where she was from. And then there's a social security number. And then if I look back here on the machine bed, there's also another 2 initials and a social security number. And because of this, I was able to find out who she was, where she lived, when she passed away, even found a photo of her house. And that is linked in tonight's blog post if you want to check that out. by today's date on my blog. It's entitled Quilt-Cam 2/24/2016. Guess what I did as I'm hearing my phone jingle from over at my computer across the room? How can I answer your emails if my phone's plugged in over there? So I'm going to have to run, take a quick break already, and get that phone and be back in 3 shakes so that we can start some sewing and start some question answering. You just never know what's going to happen here at Quiltville because, you know, it's kind of a brain dead day. I'll be right back. Okay, so that was our quickie intermission. So I have my phone back here, and I'm turning this to vibrate because I could already hear it jingling. What we do here is while I sew and you sew, if you have any photos to share with me of anything that you're working on, I'd love you to email them to me. My email address is quiltville, QUILTVILLE @gmail.com. If you just want to leave a comment on the blog post, you can do that if you're following along on the blog. And you would just click to the comment section, leave your comment there, and that also shows up in my email. You can leave a comment in my guest book. That's in the right-hand side column of the blog. If you're on a desktop or laptop computer, you'll be able to find that. However, if you're on a mobile device, it's likely you're not going to find the guest book or any sidebar stuff. So go ahead and drop me an email or leave a comment. Excuse me just a second. So what I'm doing here, I've got a couple of finished ones to show you. This is what they look like when they're trimmed up. Do you see that funky cat fabric? This is the Ghoulies. It just cracks me up. Can you see him there? Hysterical. The fabrics that have been in this bin so far, every time I pull out a handful and I set it right here on the table, and I will work through this handful until there's not enough variety, and then I'll grab another handful and pull it up. There are big pieces, small strips. There's some triangles and some squares and some hunks and chunks, and you guys did so well on sending me so much variety that it's just so fun. I don't recognize any of these grays as being anything from my stash, so that is completely wonderful. But do you see how we've got different things going on here? Here's a stripe. Here's kind of a geometric multicolored dots and a floral. This one is kind of a white design on gray. Look at these owls. Here's a darker gray tone on tone, and then a white dot on gray, then those ghoulie cats, and then another black polka dot, excuse me, on gray. The variety is what makes this so fun. And because there's some light things, some dark things, some geometric, some floral, some patterns, some novelties, this is going to be a quilt that's going to be really fun to look at. Now on the back side of this one, I don't know if you noticed, we got this little financial prospectus from a 401k in the mail. And I felt that paper. It was about to hit the trash can, and I felt that paper. And, well, lo and behold, it feels like phone book paper. And before I let it hit the trash, I cut it into my squares and thought I would just do the same thing. And the paper just tears off so easy. If your stitch length is small enough, and I'm talking about a 14 to 16 stitches per inch on a, what would you call this, an analog machine, just a basic non-computerized machine, or on a computerized machine about 1.5, that paper is going to be so super simple to just come off just like butter. So that's how these are going to be. I need like 100. Maybe not that many, but it sure feels like 100 at this point. And so I've been working on them in batches. I ran out of my prospectus paper, so now I'm back with a phone book page as my background, and it comes off just as easy. For those who are wondering, no, the ink does not come off the phone book page. This is a different printing process than newspaper. It's a different paper than newspaper. This is printed much the way let's say a paperback novel would be. So if you're reading a paperback novel and you're turning pages, does the ink come off all on your hands? Not as much as a regular newspaper would. So we are just fine with this. Now when I'm working on these, I've got one in the machine here. Can you see that? I tried to arrange the camera so that you can see some table space so that you can see what I'm doing. I like to work on 2 blocks at a time. And what I'm doing is looking for a variety in width a variety in the look of the texture, the variety in the scale of the pattern, and a whole lot of different stuff going on. So I am just going to grab something right here. Here's something fun. This one has a lot of little quilty words on it. And it might not be the exact gray as is already on here. And I am combining as many different shades of gray. Don't anybody give me that 50 shades kind of line, because I know we've gone way beyond 50 shades here. But I just want each strip to be visible against what I put it up next to. I'm going to move my light a little bit down here. Hopefully this isn't shining on anybody but me. If I go too fast, it starts vibrating the entire table. So I'm always leaving one under the foot and bringing another one forward. Here's this one right here. Now, in a perfect world, I'd be pressing right here where I don't have to turn away from you. And I don't want to be pressing over here because that's where my strips are. So, pardon me. So you can see, here's even one that's very, very skinny. It was in the bin, and I thought, well, there's not going to be much more than a 1/4 inch there showing, but somebody sent me that strip. So I'm going to sew it right on in. Now, I don't care about duplicates, because if I'm doing, let's say, 100 blocks, chances are I'm only going to get 4 or 5 out of this one strip. So I don't mind using it again in another block, as long as it is not too much the same shade as what I'm putting it next to. And I think this one needs, this has 2 dark grays either side. This one's a big print. This one's kind of a tone-on-tone with some math stuff on it. I'm going to pull this lighter floral, I think. This lighter floral would look better next to that dark one, and then give me a place to put this one with some contrast. So I work on 2 blocks, because I can kind of keep track of what I was thinking was going to go next to whatever I'm putting down. Let me sew this one, and we're going to go right into the email. I'm just aiming for somewhat of a 1/4 inch. It doesn't have to be an exact 1/4 inch seam, but we want this to hold together. Oh yes, I like that. And when you're looking at string blocks, can you tell that some of the strips taper this way and some other ones may taper the other way, and they're not all super straight? I just use them however they come out of the bin. And these strips are not straight. Some of them are cut kind of a little bit wonky. So we just use them however they are. They're going to take on their own tune. Okay, so I'm going to check in the inbox and see who's joining us tonight. Okay, all the way to the top, Judy Stokes says, Quilt-Cam. Here's my finished Grand Illusion. I'm still working on my Aliatore, but am getting close to being able to sew the blocks together. Love your mysteries. And that's Judy from Columbus, Mississippi. Oh, Judy, that is just beautiful. She did a great job with the photo. So this is Celtic Solstice. No, sorry, not Celtic Solstice, Grand Illusion. That was last year's mystery, and then Celtic Solstice was the one prior to that. I really have fun with the mysteries, and I like what you've done with the sashing. She's changed it up just a little bit. Very nice. Okay. Next one up on dock. Here's one from a phone number. Let's see if she put her name. Ramona. It's from Ramona. She says, this is a top that I finished putting together. My grandson helped design and sew blocks. I'm assembling my Leaders and Enders project. It's close to finished, and that's Ramona in Maine. She's had a lot of time this cold winter to do a lot of quilting. So here's her grandson's quilt on the bed right now. It looks like a log cabin variation with sashings. Very nice. I kind of like that. I like how the blues and the browns really give it some dimension. That's really nice, Ramona. It's got little chuck wagons, little covered wagons going around the border. He must love cowboys. Margaret Edwards says, joining you tonight from snowy southeast Michigan. Already have a snow day for tomorrow too. Working on finishing up a couple of almost done UFOs. Hope to finish at least one of them tonight. Glad you are home and doing Quilt-Cam tonight. And this is from Meg. Thanks for tuning in, Meg. I think I have elephants jumping in my kitchen upstairs. We actually did have a couple of really large branches fall out of a tree right outside our back deck. And we put a cover on the deck just this past summer and fall. So having big limbs fall on that, well, I think it's put a crack in one of the beams. But luckily, it didn't take the entire awning down or anything like that. Okay, Sharon Perry says, Quilt-Cam. It's wonderful to be sewing with you tonight. I'm working on my Playing with Jacks quilt. I started in your workshop in Vermont Quilt Festival. Since all my blocks are scrappy and all sorts of color, I'm setting the blocks with neutral string sashings. I love how that's coming. Aren't the neutral string sashings just the bomb? She says, here it is in progress. This is Sharon in Vermont, and she's got all of the horizontal sashings in there. Looks like she's waiting for the vertical ones. But you can see that her Playing with Jacks blocks are all leaning one way. This is what I like to call a block with many bells and whistles. Can you see that? Because it's asymmetrical, you can turn them in, you can stitch 4 together in a star, or you could do 16 together in 4 stars, or you could have them all going one way, or you can make them do zigzag, or you can kind of do a barn raising thing with them. There's so many different things that you can do with asymmetrical blocks. I love this one. What a fun bunch of scrappiness here. Can't wait. When you get it finished, send me the photo. I'd love to share that one. Beautiful. Okay. Elaine says, Quilt-Cam. Glad to see Quilt-Cam tonight. Just watching tonight. Your Quiltville quotes of the day have been such an inspiration. Thank you. And that's from Elaine Krause in Madison Heights, Michigan. I'm going to be doing 3 trips up to Michigan in March. Why we chose March, I don't know, but because these 3 groups could piggyback off of each other, I think is why. But I'm starting off in Traverse City on the 5th, and then, no, not the 5th. I'm in Cincinnati on the 5th. So later, the next week, I'm up in Traverse City, and then I actually fly from Traverse City down to Kalamazoo because it's cheaper to fly than to rent a car. When you're doing a multi-city stop, it only changed the price of the ticket about $100. So we'll be flying in to Traverse City, then flying down to Kalamazoo, then flying over to Lansing, and then home from there. It's going to be a whole bunch of little puddle jumpers within Michigan, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay, here we go. For the ones that I missed, holy cow, there's a whole bunch that I missed down here. Pat Kilmaine says, whoo, got it now. She reloaded. Yeah, so if you're ever on the blog a little bit too early for Quilt-Cam, know that you can't get to the post before I post the post. So if you're there and nothing's happening and you don't see the post, wait until just a few minutes or just a few seconds past 9 p.m. and click reload. Reload will refresh the page, and then that new post that just posted will show up for you. Otherwise, I have no way of getting to you if you are there too soon. So too soon is not a good thing. I'm having a thirsty moment. Chili for homemade chili for dinner. That'll leave me thirsty all night long. All right, so I see Marcia Reed with a Wild and Goosey. And she says, while we wait for snow in Northwest Ohio, stop that snow thing. I'm supposed to be in Cincinnati on the 5th, so stop that snow thing or get it over with. I am with you and working on Wild and Goosey from the Craft University class. Wonderful. I am very slow and at backward and upside down. I know. That's the thing about paper piecing, where you're sewing right on the lines that are on the paper, and the paper side is up and the fabric's down, and you've got to be right sides together in mirror image. It's like, but once you get it, it's you wonder why you never did it sooner, because it is so fun. She says, I'm glad for this evening the goal for this evening was to make a 3-inch unit without taking out stitches. Missed that on the first one already. I have a friend who made a beautiful full-size quilt of the Wild and Goosey and has several of our Tuesday quilters ready to try to. Have enjoyed the classes and watched each of them several times. So this is the shameless plug for my online workshop series that's on Craft online university, CraftU for short. There's a link in the right-hand sidebar of the blog. It's a 6-week course with one class each week, 6 different blocks, 6 different quilts, and all of the wonderful showing and sharing and photos and comments and everything, the camaraderie that goes on the message board is really, really fun. So if you missed it this go around, we're going to offer it another few times during the year. So just be watching. You can click the link and find out what other times you can register for. And use the code. It'll save you $30 off of the registration fee. Thank you so much, Marcia. Laura Valdez says, tonight's sewing project. Oh, isn't this cool? Making this for a grandson, 1.5-inch squares, 2 blocks down, 10 more to go. And it's a Mario quilt. So she sent the photo of what she's doing. It looks like a pixelated Mario there. I love that man-eating flower in the bottom. Isn't that great? So itty bitty bitty squares will finish at 1 inch, and the entire quilt will be 1-inch squares. That is wonderful. That is so cute. Okay, just a couple more and we are going to sew here. So Mr. and Mrs. Cobb say, forward, Tumblr Leader and Ender Project. Betsy from Rainy, Massachusetts here. Great night to stay in and join you for Quilt-Cam. She says, I enjoyed your posts and photos from your recent trip to Arizona. We visited Saguaro Lake last winter. And here's a picture of her Tumblr quilt. Maybe if I turn the picture sideways. Nope, this one's embedded. I swear, some days my phone gets the best of me. That is so cute. So this is her Tumblr Leader and Ender right there. I've got mine in stages at the cabin, and my goal this weekend while we're up there is to, well, work on some more string blocks, but start throwing in, instead of using 2 of these as the leaders and enders, I need that quilt done, so I may just start throwing tumblers in instead and see if I can get that quilt put together. These are beautiful scraps, and you've got fabrics in there I haven't seen before either. How is it that there's fabric that we've never seen before? Just don't know. So what I'm going to do here is sew just a little bit, and if you'd like to join me working on what you'd like to work on, sometimes I just take, if the strips are too wide like this one, I guess you can call it the lazy string piecing method. I don't like to have to get up to my rotary cutter, and I just fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it, and then whack it down the center. Sometimes a little bit off center, because then I get 2 different widths from the wide strip, and it's really wonky that way. And that way it stops everything from being super uniform. I'm going to sew this one on here. So I think Elise would be just thrilled that her machine has come to live here at Quiltville. I did not check to see if this machine has a full bobbin. That's the thing that's niggling at me. We may run out of bobbin at any given moment. Okay. This one that I picked up can work real great here too. Then I tend to keep any little small pieces for working up to the corners over here on my right side. That's the corner collection over there. Alrighty, we're going to adjust this just a little bit. This little button adjusts the pressure of the presser foot, so that if you're, sometimes when you're sewing with a layer of paper and it's a little bit slick and the feed dogs don't want to grab, if you put a little bit more pressure, it might help that function just a little bit better. Okay, what else do we got in this pile here? That one's not quite big enough to cover the corner, so I think we'll do this. Takes a little bit longer to sew with a tiny stitch, but just let the machine take it. And maybe I just love this. Gets to the point where there's not a whole lot to say. I just want to just keep sewing these. It really does feel good to be back at a machine. When I was at my dad's, here's some little corners that I just set aside. I don't have a machine at Dad's. I got an email saying, do you have a machine at Dad's, or do you want to borrow a machine for when you're at your dad's? No. My goal, did I just break a thread? I don't think I did. No, but it sure got a bubble of thread. It probably had a little, I'll check it out. When I'm at my dad's, I want to spend my time with him. He has a very small place, and I'd have to be at the dining room table, which is in a little separate room away from the living room. And I don't want to hole my way and just sell myself away and absorb myself in a sewing machine project when I'm there with him. I'd much prefer to sit and do handwork. So I got a lot of progress done on one of the neutral sections for my hexagon quilt. Getting closer here. Here's a little barely gray. This is almost a neutral. It gets to the point where it's so barely gray that I almost wouldn't use it in here because it's going to shout out as white. But I think I can use it and get it gone. All right, we're going to sew one corner on this one, and then we'll take up some more comments. How about anybody who went to QuiltCon this past week? Did you go? Did you see anything that really struck your fancy that you'd like to try? Let me know. I'd like to know what's really floating your boat out there. I know there's also at the same time there was an AQS show in Phoenix. I got there right after it was over, or I would have gone. And I think this week is an AQS show in Florida. So maybe some of you are going to that. If you are going, what are you looking for? Okay, so you're making good progress. Okay, let's find the phone underneath the strips. So while I was in California, as you can tell, guess where I got this shirt? Guess where I got this shirt? I was teaching at Eleanor Burns Quilt in a Day in San Marcos, having a wonderful time. Talk about a wonderful welcome and a bunch of really fun ladies. And I would love the opportunity to teach there again at some point, at any point. Quilt in a Day opened up their shop for the guild that I was teaching for, the El Camino Quilters, to use the shop space for their workshop. Just come on in, hold your workshop here. And I was just absolutely thrilled to be at Quilt in a Day and to spend some time with Eleanor and with everybody else. Just a wonderful place. I would say I would choose that place over Disneyland any day. It is so warm. It is so welcoming. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey as a quilter, whether you're just starting or whether you've been at it for 30, 40 years. We had a sweet young girl come in. I have to think of what her name was. Jade. Okay, so Jade comes in. Now, Eleanor and her granddaughter, Ellie, have this video on YouTube. And so you can look it up and find it. And I think it's called Crayon Box or something like that. And Eleanor and Ellie have this video on making this quilt together. So the granddaughter, who's maybe she's 11, I don't know. I don't remember how old she is. Do this video. Well, this young lady, Jade, saw the video with her mom, wanted to make the quilt, got the fabric, made the whole quilt herself. And this was her very first quilt, and she's like 9 or 11 or something like that. Just adorable. And when she found out that Quilt in a Day was in the same town she lives in, I mean, she lived there, and they just saw the video on YouTube. She did not know that they were from San Marcos. So she and her mom came in and brought the cutest quilt, and she used flannels, and she put Minky on the back, and they enveloped it. It's great for just learning quilters, for young girls to do you stitch the quilt front and the backing right sides together, and then you turn it right side out and hand stitch the opening closed, and then just tie the quilt in different places. She did such a great job, and she came in, and it just happened to be that Eleanor was in, and got to have her pictures taken with Eleanor while I was there. So if you scroll back to a couple of weeks ago on the blog, or if you Google or put in the search bar for the blog Eleanor Burns, it's gonna come up, and you will see the pictures of Jade and her very first quilt. And I watched Eleanor with this young gal, and it was just marvelous. This little girl felt like she was $1 million, and she really did a great job. And that's where my teaching heart is at. So for those who are beginners and just starting, it doesn't matter whether you're 9 or 79. We're all learning at the same point. For those who are intermediate, have been quilting a while, but still feel like there's lots you can learn, that's where my heart is at. For anybody who's willing to try something new and not say, well, so-and-so said I should do it this way, that's where my heart is at. I love it when people are willing and eager to learn. So that's where this shirt came from. And I forgot where this tangent was going. Oh, yes. I saw another couple of shops while in California. I taught at Fabric and Chocolate, or Cotton and Chocolate, and that was a lot of fun. So by the time I got to Arizona, and I'm getting messages that I must see this shop, and you must go here. Oh, and by the way, you must eat over here, and don't forget over here, and go to this shop over here. That would not have left any time for my family. So it was kind of nice to say, I'm off the clock. I've seen enough quilt shops. I've seen enough fabric. Now I just want to be happy. And so I had a wonderful time with my dad and my brother and my sister-in-law and family while I was there. But sometimes there are just too many quilt shops, and you can't hit them all. Nor would you want to. You know, sometimes it just overwhelms the whole experience if you do too much of it. Sarah Walden says, new here. Hi, Sarah. Nice to read you tonight. She says, first time being able to watch live. I live in Weaver, Alabama. New to the scrappy quilting. I'm finishing up a baby quilt for a gift and using scraps that I had for most of it. Isn't that fun? So we'd like to shout out a big Quiltville welcome to Sarah. We hope that you'll tune in again and that you'll follow along with what we're doing in Quiltville. This one, Pat Bozeman says, I had a fun day with 2 friends cutting fabrics for a workshop we're taking with you in Wichita, Kansas in April. Boy, you are way ahead of the schedule here. She says, we're beyond excited. My other project is English paper piecing flowers for a swap I'm in. Here are several pictures, and this is Pat Bozeman from Derby, Kansas. Oh my goodness, it's Kansas. Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. And there's Dorothy in the yellow brick road fabric. Is that cool? Hey, I've had that fabric. I think I got it one of the last times I was in Kansas. That is so cool. So she has her name on it, Pat Bozeman, Derby, Kansas, USA, 2016. So that must be her swap block. Let's see the other one. Oh, this one's very cool. Fussy cut stars. She's got her thimble on there for scale. So you can see that was a very large star print, and she's fussy cut that to make circle around the center hexes. Very, very patriotic and nice. Love that. So happy that you're with us here tonight. Okay, this one is from, for goodness sakes, you guys are coming in faster than I can keep up here. Sorry if I miss anybody. This one says Quilt-Cam question from Stephanie. She says, enjoying Quilt-Cam tonight. I was wondering, could you tell us what that great lamp you have is that's arching over the sewing machine? This, my dear friends, is an IKEA light, and you'll find it at IKEA for about 10 bucks. And if you order it on Amazon or eBay, it may cost you about $10 more, maybe a little more for the shipping, but it's probably cheaper than finding your nearest IKEA to get one. So get them. I have 4 different kinds, actually. This is the heavy base table lamp, and I love it because it shines light right down where I need it. Then there's a clamp on one, and I will use that in hotel stitching. I can clamp it to the fold down tray on a featherweight or a 301. I can clamp it wherever I need to if I'm sewing on a binding in a hotel room. And this is something that I was having a Facebook conversation with Guyleen Fitzgerald today, and she says, I brought a quilt to bind. She's at a hotel doing a thing. The lighting's terrible in my room. I forgot my out light. Well, the clamp-on IKEA light is fabulous because usually there's a desk lamp or a floor lamp or something in a hotel that's rather crummy. But if you clamp the bendable light to the lampshade or the arm of the lamp, you can point it right down in your lap and you'll be able to see what you are binding. And that one's about $15. It weighs almost nothing. And that's the one I usually travel with because it doesn't weigh anything, where this would take up about 10 pounds of my suitcase weight. There's also a little tiny one that's USB, and you would plug it into the USB on your laptop to shine light on your keyboard so that you could type if you needed it. But I've used it plugged into a backup battery, and then I've used that on the airplane for stitching by, or I used it on the arm of the chair while I was stitching at my dad's, because it would just, imagine this was your backup battery and you would just plug it in here and bend it over and on it goes. It's wonderful. So IKEA, great pilgrimage for quilting stuff. All right, welcome, Stephanie. Glad to have you here. Hey, this one is from Fran Howard, who's asking about Orca Bay. She says, working on blocks for Orca Bay using oranges and greens. Good fun, she says, and she sends a photo. Oh, beautiful. So these are all of her little mini Ohio Star blocks. Can I biggie those a little bit, maybe? There they are. Beautiful. Some with dark and some with light backgrounds. Those are going to be wonderful. I'm glad you're enjoying those. I really like how those look on your design wall. Very nice. Jill Steiger says, Quilt-Cam at last. So glad to have Quilt-Cam tonight. I'm trying to sew binding on my crummy charity quilt, but Rudy the cat might have other ideas. And this is Jill in Michigan. Come on, Jill in Michigan, open your photo. Can I get it bigger? Oh, there he is. Oh, he looks just like my Emmy Lou. So she's trying to bind. He's keeping her company right there. So this is from Jill. Yeah, get that Michigan thing warmed up, okay? Thank you. It has me thinking about the last time I went to Mackinac Island will be 2 years ago this coming May, and the whole lake was still iced over. The ferries weren't running. They had to put me in a 4-seater little bebop plane to get me there, and who knows what this year will bring because I'll be back there again. Anita says, working on. It's my birthday and there is Quilt-Cam. She says, thanks. I know you did this just for me. I'm working on my first Bonnie Hunter quilt. It's the uneven 9 patch, and this is Anita in Glendale, Arizona. So this is her split 9 patch. Coming along great. Look at how she's divided her values up between the really light ones and the really dark ones. I like this. She's got good contrast so that her design will show up. And you can find the free pattern for this one under the free patterns tab at the top of the blog. It's split 9 patch, and it was our leader and ender, what, 3 years ago now? Because we did split 9 patch, then we did lozenges, and now we're doing tumblers. So that's coming along just great. Okay, and the other thing that happened to me this week, it's always a joke. So I bought this little clamp thing that clamps your phone and holds it to the vent in the car so that I can use the GPS while I'm driving my rental car. And it kept wanting to fall like this out of the vent. So I thought, well, maybe I need to scoot that little thing further up. Well, on my phone, there's a button here, and there's a button here. And you know what happens if you hold those both down at the same time? It reboots your phone to factory settings. I got like a DOS screen on my phone and these green and red letters that says, erasing everything, and then it went into reset up. And I had, luckily, it was able to reboot to my last backup, so I didn't lose contacts. Most of my photos had been offloaded that morning to my laptop because I don't store stuff on my phone just for that reason. My cloud is full and I'm too cheap to buy more. So I've been revamping my phone. So this is just what a day in the life of a traveling quilter is like. You're in the car, driving to the airport, in a rental car with the GPS on because you don't know the way to the airport, and your phone goes into reboot mode. It's a good thing I was a couple hours early. And I was able to remember how to follow the signs on the interstate saying airport this way. How did we ever live without GPS? Gay Barry says, Sadie, storms are rolling through New York, so we have a thunder dog tonight. How is Sadie doing? Thank you for Quilt-Cam. I've had so many wonderful tips and helps. What we've tried in the past were these little treats that had some kind of a compound in them that the first sign of whatever, you give them these treats and it's supposed to whatever. For all I know, it could be the tryptophan from Turkey that's supposed to make them calm. That didn't work. The thunder shirt does not work for her. She will tolerate you putting it on, but it's like, really, this is supposed to do something? I don't think so. We've tried the melatonin in a bit of cheese, and I think I'm too light on the dose because that doesn't seem to do anything. And another vet person was telling us Benadryl, but I really don't want a comatose zombie dog. She just comes unglued. It's really hard to describe what it's like to have a dog at 4 in the morning leave your son's room and jump fully on you while you're sound asleep, and then is just shaking so bad she could have turned a jug of cream to butter. So ignoring her, I think that's cruel. Some people say, oh, just ignore her, she'll get over it. I don't agree with that. I don't think that. I don't think that dogs, they just feel what they feel, and ignoring them I don't think is the key. So we're just trying to find the right thing. You know, I'm thinking right now about a shot of vodka might I don't know, or for me, so that I can go back to sleep. But poor Sadie, we really did have some bad storms last night and this afternoon. The thunder really rolled through and it pounded, and she just, poor thing. And it's something that's intensified as she's gotten older because she used to never do this. Susan Zirk says, Quilt-Cam on vacation in Asheville tonight. So hello there. Welcome to North Carolina. Left my quilt project at home on the table, so I'm knitting. Thank you for all that you do. Finished Aliatere and working on the tumbler also. I don't know how you do all the traveling. I could not get packed for this trip. How do you do that? Well, once you get to the point where you know that you're leaving again in a week, or you know that you're leaving in 2 weeks, I kind of leave my suitcase there and stuff comes out of it and it gets washed. And I either put it back in or I put something else in instead. And I'm always thinking about, okay, I have this night and this night in the hotel. This night's a lecture, and then 2 more nights in the hotel, and then I'm home. So that's 4 nights possibly of sewing. So I plan enough for 3 nights because I know one of those I'm going to be too tired. So you just plan. I do all of my cutting at home, all of my matching up of pairs of things that are being sewn together. So like if it's half square triangles or 4 patch parts or whatever, I don't want to travel with all of these, say, 1.5-inch strips to sew into strip sets and then have to cut in the hotel, because that's not fun. So I do all of my sewing of the strip sets, all of the matching of the pairs, and all of the sub cutting, and then put those in Ziploc baggies. So I just have to just run those through the machine at the hotel, or half square triangles at the hotel, or maybe flying geese parts or whatever it is. Or maybe I've got the units made and I just need to assemble blocks at the hotel. I try to work when I'm at home and I leave certain parts undone so that can be the easiest hotel work. But if I don't do that time, the quilts don't get made. I don't meet my deadlines, and we don't have books, and we don't have, you know, magazine blocks and stuff like that. So we just take the time that we can in short bursts. And if you're ready, you can do it. Okay, so that's Susan Zirk. Jamie, pinch me live Quilt-Cam, she says. Hello, it's Jamie from snowy cold Grand Haven, Michigan. Jamie, you Michiganders are going to have to fix Michigan before I get there. She says, totally addicted to you and Quilt-Cam. I started attending our local quilt guild where I learned about you. Can't stop watching. Have you ever sewn felted wool sweaters into a quilt? No. Would you recommend paper piecing for stability? Might not hurt, because that's going to be like sewing felt, right? I mean, is it amorphous? Does it stretch? I think paper would be a good idea. She says, this is what I'm doing while watching you needle felting, and she's showing a picture here. Looks like she's got some little flowers going on her foundation there, and there's the little needle that she's doing the felting thing with. Really, really cute. And there's a whole lot of wool going on in Michigan. I love it. Can't wait to see you guys. It's going to be fun. Okay, set this down. I'm going to sew a little bit. If anybody's going to be near Cincinnati on the 5th of March, I think it's the 5th through the 8th or something like that. Will this work? This will work. I can do this way. Okay, so here's another idea. Hold that thought. I wasn't sure this was going to be big enough to cover that way, but remember there's two different directions you can use strips. I can get better use out of this piece, plus have the grain line going the way that I want it to go, if I put this strip this way, sew it, and fold it up. And that'll leave me even more to be used on the next corner down the line. So back to Cincinnati. There's a few openings left. If you wanted to contact the guild, click the calendar of events tab that's at the top of my blog. Scroll to that date. It's the first week of March in Cincinnati, and there's an email address and the guild website. So you can contact them about attending the workshops or just the lecture if you want to. I never know when a venue is sold out, but this gal let me know that they still had a couple of openings. So you're welcome to come if you'd like to come see me. And there's one. Considering it was half finished by the time we started Quilt-Cam, I'm really moving along here. So this is a busy, busy, busy little floral. And when I have busy little florals like this, I like to put something completely different next to it. So I would not put, say, this floral next to it. Even though they're two different colors, it's just flowers upon flowers and not very interesting for me. So I want to look for something that's completely different. And this one's kind of a medium tone. This one's not long enough, needs to go in the short stack. Okay. This is that one that's barely gray, but it's a tone-on-tone with a different texture of a swirl, and I think it'll look just fine next to that, so that's what I'll sew. Remember, these first two strips go right sides together down the center of the page. Corner to corner. Just kind of centered over those corners. I'm not real perfect with it, but I give it a good try. All right, so now if I trim this way, I have this huge piece I can use for another corner because that one only needed to be that big. That's a floral. Got to dig. This one will work. That time I did break the thread. Did you hear that? Oops. Okay, so I'm not sure what happened, but we're going to check the bobbin while we're at it. Tension looks good, so I'm not sure what happened. Something caught a loop, but I want to check the bobbin just to see where we're at. Oh, yeah. This is a class 15 bobbin, and it's huge, and it holds a lot of thread. So these little machines were great for free motion quilting. There's a little dial here on the front. You just drop this little, turn the little dial, and it'll drop the feed dogs. The class 15 machines are wonderful for free motion quilting. What I love about them is it's a straight stitch only machine, so the feed dogs are very, very narrow. But this is about the size of a Bernina bobbin. It's just really, really big compared to a featherweight or a 301. We're talking major huge here. Okay, make sure this is going in the direction it needs to go. We'll rethread her back up. Okay, so we're only partially unthreaded here. This machine, just like the featherweight, because the tensioner is way over here to the left, does thread. This one threads from outside to inside, and I can't do it without a needle threader. I just can't put my head on the table and see it going from outside to inside. I can't get my eye in here to see it. So just the little trusty old grandma's silver little wire doohickey works. I can almost do that with just feeling it and not having to look at it. Oh, she of little depth perception. Missed it. Isn't thread funny? You would swear that you're aiming for the right spot, but you miss it. Goodness sakes. Go back in there. Got it. Okay. And then there's a little guide there. It goes under. Okay. Bring that top thread up. There we go. These machines are very simple, very basic. This one is marked with little oil holes where you just oil regularly. It's just so simple. The only thing that you'd need to worry about would be the wiring. You know, if the wiring's cracked or whatever, you may need to replace that if you find a machine like this. Or if somehow something's gotten jammed and has thrown that timing off. But very rarely, if ever, does the timing get thrown off on vintage machines. Okay, a little corner on this one and it'll be done. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here. If I put a seam right here, it's going to be really close to this corner. And so instead, I'm going to scoot this corner just a little bit further down. So my approximate 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm going to trim out the extra seam allowance. Just so there's not any seams really close to that corner. I've been having a lot of fun playing with different channels on Pandora. I just throw out the name of an artist that I think of and see what other kind of music comes along with it. So right now, I've got the Petula Clark channel on. I was listening to something else, and the song "Downtown" came on. I thought, oh, I haven't heard Petula Clark for a long time, so I typed in Petula Clark, and this is what came out. A lot of stuff from that era, and right now it's "One Fine Day." Some songs you just gotta sing along with. Although I'm going to have to change the lyrics to "One fine day, I'm going to sew you in my quilt." Instead of "One fine day, you're going to want me for your girl," you're going to sew me in your quilt. One fine day. There we go. All right, so now this one's done, 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 done. See that variety? Doesn't it just sing? Doesn't it just make you happy? I know it does me, and I know some of these on their own, like this one right here, I mean, it's a dirty dishwasher gray. It's like concrete taupey gray. It's like, but you add it with everything in there, such great texture, such great variety. And yet coming off of the bolt, I'm not sure a lot of these I would have been in love with, but having them here as gray salad, it's just wonderful. Okay. Too blue. Now I'm looking. And if I don't have anything that goes, that'll work. Different shade. Some of these grays even push towards lavender. This one has a very lavender cast to it, but I like it. It looks like it's like three-dimensional bubbles or something on it. And this gray has more of a blue cast to it, so we'll just sew them to each other. This one's almost borderline too thick. It's just under 2.5 inches, but if I cut it in half, those strips are going to be really, really, really skinny. And it's got a nice big print on it, so I'm going to just leave it as is and only use it sparingly. My hope is that those who sent gray strips will be able to recognize their strips in these blocks someday. Too short. What else do we got up here? How about this one? That's a good texture. So what about things with color in them? I have this piece up here. I haven't cut into it yet, but somebody sent along this gray with these pink chain links. And I'm thinking if I cut it fairly narrow, that it would just have just a tiny pinch of pink, and that would be okay. But I wouldn't sew it in big chunks because then it's going to be big pink blob. And that's my thoughts on that. I need to get to a place where I can use very small strips of that. But seriously, there must be 35 pounds of gray fabric in here. I have no idea on the yardage count or whatever. And to tell you the truth, there's even an overflow bin of bigger hunks and chunks that I didn't want to put in the string bin. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna sew gray quilts until the cows come home, because it's such a blessing. But be careful what you ask for. 100 blocks. This is going to take a while. Okay, so let's find the phone and see who's with us tonight. Alrighty, Eileen Tess says, ignore my triangle question. Okay. Her gist is, oh, I looked at my Kaleido ruler and it has a line to cut them. Much easier than a math formula. Good, Eileen. Glad you figured it out, because I don't think I have that ruler. I may in the ruler dungeon. Karen Okerstrom says, Quilt-Cam! Exclamation point, exclamation point. So glad to visit with you tonight. Here's my entry for the Guild Challenge at last weekend's show for the Rio Grande Valley Quilt Guild in South Texas. So hello to the South Texas gals. Of course, it was scrappy because that's how I roll. First time entering a quilt, and it was so exciting to get a ribbon. And just by the last name, girl, you sound like a Minnesotan who's flown south to become a winter Texan. I love my Minnesota heritage. Okay, so she's got a wonderful set of ribbons there on her show entry. Just look at that eagle with the stars. Isn't that beautiful? That is absolutely gorgeous, and you deserved every bit of it. I love that you've got some badges, also attached to the bottom. Can you guys see down here at the bottom? Those look like actual military badges on here. So, whoops, just wonderful. Enjoy your time in South Texas. Those gals are so fun. So here's AJ from Georgia who says, tumblers. Thanks for Quilt-Cam. I finished my first tumbler top. Don't look too close, though. I sent a picture of my finished Aliatari top earlier, so she's probably buried down in the feed. There must be 40 emails in my inbox, and we're not going to get to them all tonight, but I thank you for participating. So here she is with her rainbow tumblers, and I like how she's offset them so they're in zigzag rows, and look at that beautiful colored border that ties it all together. That is gorgeous. You've got me anxious to get my tumblers a little further along than they are. So this one's from Sharon in Kalama. She says, glad to see you again on Quilt-Cam. One of our Quilt Guild members, Sarah Bond, won 3rd place in the Modern Traditionalism category. We are very proud of her. Poor Sadie, I know how she feels. I hate thunderstorms. Here in Philadelphia, we are having the storms you had yesterday. Quilt-Cam is a wonderful distraction. Thanks for all you do. And this says Kalama Creations. I'm trying to guess if I've got the right person or not, but I think I do. She didn't leave her name. I'm trying to guess here. So if I fudged it and blew it, just don't let anybody know. Brenda Middleton. Hi, Brenda. She says, can't sew with you tonight. Got the grandkids, but wanted to say hi. I will pretend it's live tomorrow when I'm in my studio. And maybe she'll get all excited when she hears I read her name out loud. Brenda, we need to catch up maybe this week, okay? JD Vodka says, Martinsburg is about 90 miles outside of Washington, D.C. I'm happy to participate in my first live Quilt-Cam. I've watched the archived Quilt-Cams. It's nice to have company while sewing, isn't it? Isn't it just fun? Thanks. She says, I'm working on the Aliatari quilt, my first Bonnie quilt. I'm putting together the star blocks. I finished the other blocks. I'm getting excited to be able to sew them together. This quilt has been so much fun. This is from Johanna, and she's showing how she's laid out her block parts. So she's ready to start sewing these units together. All the units are stacked in the order in which they're going to be sewn, and she'll be able to quickly get these together. Hopefully she'll be able to sew a lot this weekend. So stay tight there in West Virginia. If you're getting the storm that rolled through here, it's a doozy. And like I said, it's weirdly warm. You know, that weirdly warm, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore feeling. It's kind of spooky when it does that this time of year. Paula Jo David says, working on sewing room, have to just watch just tonight. She says, my Aliatare, I'm in the process of moving my sewing room into my used to be a bedroom so that I can recover my living room. Thank you for all that you do. You know, I know people who have actually moved out of their master bedrooms and left that to be the sewing room. Hey, it comes with an executive washing room. You know, it's not a bad idea. And if you're going to just be sleeping in a bedroom, then who needs the walk-in closet more than the quilter for her fabric and everything like that? So you're not the first one, but this is just beautiful. She's got her aliatare laid out there on the bed, coming together. I see some pops of color here and there. That is just glorious. And you're going to have a lot of fun resetting up your sewing room the way that you want it to be. You'll probably discover things that you forgot you even had. That's always a good thing. Beautiful job, Paula Jo. Thank you for sharing. And this was from BJ Chadwick from New Jersey. Says, working on doll clothes and a modified log cabin, which will probably be for my brother and sister-in-law who live in a modified log cabin. Regarding Sadie, have you tried a white noise machine, the kind that play nature sounds like the ocean or a brook? It helps block out the other sounds. That's one thing that we haven't done, but let me tell you, the one thing I really notice about being home here is came home from Arizona. Arizona, no bugs, right? It's desert. No bugs, no night sounds, completely silent. Get home here, all of the peeper frogs and the little tree frogs and whatever cricket things, they're alive. We have a creek at the back of our property, and they've started up their symphony already, and it will continue all the way through until November. It's just, our night noise in North Carolina is incredible, but I love it. So when you're talking about nature sounds, we've got nature sounds, but I could give that a try for her and see if she likes the sounds of waves crashing or something. It's worth a shot at this point. Okay, finish the quilting and trimmed, binding and hanging sleeve go on tomorrow, and isn't this gorgeous? She sent a photo. It looks like a paper piece table runner, wall hanging. Can you see right there? It's got all those sharp points, trying to get it in the right spot where you can see it. If I biggie, can I biggie? Woo! There you go. Now you can see those sharp points on there. Paper piecing. And my guess would be a Paula Nadelstern or a who's the other girl? Who's the gal that does Glacier Star? There's a whole bunch of paper piecers out there with lots of sharp, spiky, pointy things, and I love them. The first ones of those I ever did were patterns by Karen Stone back in the 90s. Just love them. All right, going to sew a little bit more here before we have to close off for the night, and I'm needing something a little bit lighter. Maybe this one, but nope. Use it up and get rid of it, even if I don't love it so much. So I don't do that brown paper bag thing. You've probably already guessed that. I think we kind of intuitively know what we like next to what and what we wouldn't put next to what. And that brown paper bag thing actually ties my hands instead of giving me freedom. So I'm not happy if I have to use the brown paper bag to pull strips out of and sew whatever you pull out of the brown paper bag. But I do try not to agonize over my choices, and I try to make them quickly. As in, that'll do, and don't, once you find one that will do, don't go digging for something better. Okay, I'll sew this little one right here, just big enough. I love it. I love it when the throwaway scraps are just big enough. And then I have to look at the floor because stuff gets pushed off down that direction. This will work. So I kind of eyeball myself and trim so that I have at least a ½ inch either side. And that way, if I fall short somewhere, I've got room to move the ruler a little bit for when I square down. That's my safety measure. Okay, and how about this lavendery one? Pretty good. I try not to have too many of the same width together. Separate the skinnier ones with some wider ones and vice versa. I think string piecing would be a really great retreat project. You just show up with a bin and a phone book and away you go. And you could string piece all retreat long and have a great time doing it with no stress. You can do any size you want. I actually like the smaller string blocks better than the bigger ones. So I generally don't go any larger. Whoops, and I just broke the thread again. I usually don't go any larger, rats, than say 8.5 inches would be my largest. The reason? They've got to fit on the paper, and if they need to be larger than that, I would rather piece 4 smaller string blocks together to make a large string block than just have one giant string block that just goes one direction. So 8.5 inches is kind of my limit, whatever the paper size is. Okay. You know what? I give up. Let's answer some more. Then we're going to call it a night, I think. Irene says, hello from Kentucky. She says, so happy to see you via live Quilt-Cam. Hello, my friend. I'm so excited to be able to join you in Ohio for your classes there. She's coming to Cincinnati. Are you coming to Cincinnati? If you come to Cincinnati, you can play with me and Irene. She says, I've put aside cold turkey, her version of talking turkey, because that's one of the classes you're teaching there. But as you know, I have plenty of other quilts to work on. Really look forward to seeing you. Was wondering if the cocoon is full. I have a friend who is interested in attending. The cocoon is also still available. We're not full yet, although as we get closer to the date, the fuller it will be. The cocoon is being put on by Craft Tours, So Many Places. That's the travel company that I travel and do cruises with, and we're doing a land cruise is what we're calling it. It's a stationary hotel. I think it's either a Hyatt or a Hilton, I can't remember off the top of my head, in Naperville, Illinois. And this happens in April, and it's 4 days of retreating with myself, Pepper Corey, Pam Holland, and Mark Sherman. Yes, I finally remembered what Mark Sherman's name is because I had to think of Bobby Sherman to remember. I haven't met him yet, but I'm sure he's unforgettable once I do meet him. So what happens is that you get 4 full days of workshops, 1 workshop day with each of the 4 instructors. There's evening activities, there's meals planned. This is a staycation retreat, so if you want to stay at the hotel with us, there's one price. If you live nearby and you want to travel in and be a day retreater, you'll still get the evening events, the day classes, the banquet meal and stuff. The only thing that you're responsible for would be your own breakfast if you're staying somewhere else and coming in for the day classes. But all of that information is up under the Cocoons, Craft Tours Cocoons tab at the top of the blog. I hope you'll click it. I hope you'll find the information that you're looking for there, and that you'll consider joining us in Naperville, Illinois in April. So that's going to be a ton of fun. Thank you for reminding me to mention that one, Irene. And I'll be seeing you in 5th of March. 5th of March. Wonderful. Okay. Mark Hay says, love the machine and your gray string blocks are cool. Well, thank you. She says, so happy for Quilt-Cam. It's been way too long. I felt that too. The last time I tried to do Quilt-Cam at the cabin, I just was not happy with the experience. We just don't have strong internet there. Even though I had the laptop hardwired, it was skippy, it was blurry, my mouth was out of sync with the video, and I've just decided to leave cabin time for cabin time and only do Quilt-Cam from home. And then I've been on the road. So I'm really happy to be able to do this tonight. Hopefully we can also fit in a Quilt-Cam next week because I don't leave until the 4th. So I'm thinking before we leave, we can do this one more time next week. So watch on the blog and I'll let you know what night will work the best. It all depends on my schedule here at home, what's going on, if the hubby has tennis, things like that. And I like to do it on an evening when I don't have other family around because I would like to be with family if possible while I'm home. She says, as for Sadie, Benadryl is what my vet recommended we give Layla. It's really helped. That's what I've been told. So I think the next time we'll give her little puppy zombie Benadryl and see what happens. She's got her Aleatare on the wall, and she says she's used 10 of the men's shirts that she's purchased last year in the making of this quilt, and she's loving that they're getting used and plan on using lots of them when she starts Scrappy Mountain Majesties with us. That's what's also waiting for me up at the cabin. But Mona is up in Ohio right now because her father passed away, and we're working on this quilt together, so that's on hold until she comes back. Okay, so here's Marquet's Aleatare with men's shirts in her blocks. Look how gorgeous that is. That is just wonderful. I'm so happy that you're enjoying it and that you shared it with us. Thank you so much. I have to look closer at those fabrics. Oh, those are terrific. There's some plaids and some stripes in her neutrals even. That's gorgeous. All right, Kathy Langdale. Watching you and snuggling with my grandson, which precludes any amount of quilting. This is even better. Look at this. Oh, he's so tiny. He's just a brand new baby grandson. And then she's got Quilt-Cam there on her phone. I'd say that is a legitimate excuse not to be sewing. Hold the grandbabies while you can. The quilting will wait. Grandbabies grow too fast. Sweetheart. That's so exciting. All right, one more from Joy Heasley, who says, 50 Shades of Blue. Unable to join you for Quilt-Cam tonight, but wanted to share what I've done the past couple weeks. Not gray, but trying to empty 2 big drawers of blue strings. The stack on the left is in progress. On the right are 131 that are done. Not sure what you are doing with your gray, but mine will be blue. Hugs from Alaska. Oh, and I have not made a dent in the strings, she says. So she's got, let's see, will this turn? Yes, if it turns, I can biggie just a bit. So she's got some that she's working on, some that are finished. There's 131 in the done pile. I'm not sure what size she's doing either. So hopefully she'll find a use for these. The strings never do go away. Everything makes strings, and playing with them in color families is just oh so much fun. That is just gorgeous, Joy. Thank you for sending the message even though you couldn't tune in. So here is one from Meg who says she's finished the quilt tonight. Oh, we already showed this one. This was the spiky pokey thing. And Mary Willis says, hi, Bronnie, browsing through my New Scraps Inc. 2 book, and Allison Harris, Diary of a Quilter, has a shout out to you in the quilt fill on page 26. You're famous for inspired scrap quilting. Happy for Quilt-Cam. I did not know this. They don't always give you notice when they do a shout out for you. That's really exciting. I'm going to have to look that up. Thank you so much, Mary. So that's Scraps Inc. 2 book. I'll have to look that up. Thanks. Put a star on that one. All right, and one more from Spanky who says passion for sewing. Hi, Patricia Geiger, aka Spanky. Have you always been passionate for quilting? What a great question to end Quilt-Cam tonight on. Not always quilting. Hang on. My whistle gets really dry. But I've always had a passion for creating. In fact, I've been a little entrepreneur from about the time I was 10. And I remember we had a sandbox in our backyard. And this was, see, if I was born in 62, so this would be about 1972. So we're right in the middle of a hippiedom here. And I would, with the help of my mom, melt wax and color it And we would make sand castles in the sandbox. We'd dig a little hole, some kind of a shape. Remember this? And we'd pour in one color of wax and let it cool. And then we'd pour in another color of wax and let it cool. Of course, we had little wicks in there. And we pour in another thing. And we had these rainbow colored candles. And those, and also the jar candles. We had Sanka instant coffee jars. We had jam jars. We had all kinds of different stuff that we'd fill with candle wax, and then heaven forbid we would I distinctly remember doing this, is wrapping it in a kitchen towel and banging it with a mallet and getting the glass off. So here you have this candle that's shaped like this jar. And I'd go through the neighborhood selling my candles to the neighbors. And as I think about it now, I probably was selling them for less than the wax and the little die cubes cost. I'm sure that we were going in the hole for me to sell these candles, but it taught me a valuable lesson. I was learning the joy of creating things and the satisfaction of providing something that other people wanted. And I'm sure the neighbors were going, oh, here she comes again. So a passion for making things, yes. And when I got to junior high, I was so excited to start home ec classes because I really wanted to spend time on the sewing machine. We made aprons, we did dirndl skirts, we did pillows, we did all kinds of stuff. And then into high school also. My first patchwork experience, my first quilting experience was in my senior year of high school. And that went right on into my marriage. And then lo and behold, I found quilt magazines in the grocery store. And I've always been a yard sale fiend, and finding fabric in other places, it's a treasure hunt. You know, so yeah. And no matter what else I tried, any other craft, I did plastic, canvas, needlepoint, I did cross stitch, I did macrame, I did wreaths, I did floral arrangements, and dolls. Dolls were big. But I always came back to quilting because that's just where my heart feels the happiest. It's a useful item. It covers the people that I love. The whole process of creating a quilt, from choosing the fabrics to sewing the blocks to putting them together to the quilting to the binding to the label to the giving, everything is just centered in joy. And I love that. I love that about my life. So now that you know that, it's a good time for me to wish everybody a good night. If it's still early where you are, don't stop now. Keep sewing. I may even rethread this machine and decide to just finish these 2 blocks before going to bed. Be looking for me next week. Watch on the blog, and I will let you know when our next Quilt-Cam will be, okay? It just depends. I need to check the calendar on some things first. What else? Oh, there's a giveaway. Giveaway for the February Quilty box is going on the blog. If you go to quiltville.blogspot.com and scroll the front page of entries, you'll find that post. And you'll be able to enter by clicking the blue Add Your Link button. Just put in your name and your address only. That drawing is tomorrow night, so you'll want to get that entry in before 6 p.m. on tomorrow. For that drawing. I'll be drawing from the cabin when I arrive up there tomorrow night. What else? Well, there's some other stuff coming on. I am adding some new titles to the Quiltville store, and I will be posting about those in the morning. And there's some really, really fun ones that you might want to add to your collection of wonderful books for using scraps as well. And maybe another giveaway after this other one is over. Just lots of fun stuff, and I'm going to let you get onto it, and I am going to finish up here and then head to bed because tomorrow's another quilty day. We'll see you later, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.